talking about television, what were you doing on Saturday night, Samara?
Don't tell him.
Did you watch Saturday Night?
Tell him.
Did you watch Saturday Night Live? That is an American TV show now being restarted. It's now come over to this big institution in America now. It's started.
With Jamie Dornan, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
However, they did a little opening skit on our favourite Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's the butt of jokes now.
Yes, I sort of woke up in my stupor on a Sunday morning and watched it on YouTube, and I thought it was mildly funny. It was interesting. I think it's quite weirdly revolutionary at this point to have any sort of show making fun of the institution. I mean, the week before they had made fun of our Prime Minister, which was quite refreshing. Now they're making fun of Andrew. I mean, these are topics that are dark, but they're almost so dark that you've got to find the light in them and just sort of see the dark comedy within it of how horrible Andrew's life has been PR-wise and what a spectacle it's been for the public. So I thought SNL did a really good job of it. I liked the slight jab at Meghan. That was hilarious. Harry will marry someone who's 98% not popular, or that the British public find it hard to have a conversation about. I think they probably could have gone in harder. There's more fodder there.
Why do you think they didn't? Why do you think they just went? They went for Andrew, didn't they? Well, and the King. They kind of the idea of the joke, the idea of the premise was that Andrew had to be involved in scandals and look absolutely terrible to make Charles look good. That was the joke, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I think you're right. They didn't go in as hard, probably because they're trying to stay very clear of making fun of Meghan on the grounds that, in the past people have been fired over that sort of thing. And we know that the Sussexes get involved when their feelings get hurt. So, I think they were steering clear of that. But obviously Andrew is up for any jokes to be made out about him, and he is a laughing stock at the moment in terms of how he's dithering and dallering all over the place with what he's been doing.
Is that right, Rob? Is he just ripe for comedy? Is he just a laughing stock now?
Well, it's a bit tame. I think they were a bit tame, but I grown up with Spitting Image, but where the puppets were good and the satire was good, and they would be made to look completely ridiculous, the royal family. And most politicians were, gibbering idiots. So, I actually think that it was quite tame, really, and that we've become a bit tame. Was, in the past, the royal family, you had the Queen Mother drinking gin, and you had Prince Philip spitting venom at the people. it was, it used to be the norm. And Andrew and Fergie were just seen as complete buffoons.
Oh, well, Fergie was dragged into it as well, wasn't
That
she?
impression was good, I have to say. Pardon?
Which I'd never noticed before. They started laughing about her walk.
Yeah, I can't unsee it now, though. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Well, it's not like the walk of a ballerina, is
it? It was quite funny, as I say, and I found it interesting that they've, they chose second open it on their second episode on a little funny about Andrew. But surely the best punchlines are when Andrew was on Newsnight talking about going to a pizza restaurant and not being able to sweat. That you'll never be able to top those.
No, you can't. They're brilliant. You get laughs any time. But the trouble is, I've done a few talks and I did that line where you said I wasn't there. You show a picture of you with Andrew when I remember interviewing him, and I said I wasn't there. I was at Pizza Hut in Pizza Express in Woking. But the trouble is now that you can't really joke about it too much because it's got even more serious than than before. It's he's now been arrested. Over the role as an envoy, but the whole thing seems to get even murkier. So the jokes around it can become more difficult, I think.
Well, it's darker.
Yeah, it's definitely darker. Yeah,
it's darker, but on the surface there is that sort of Tweedledee and Tweedledum nature of Andrew and Fergie, and just the way that they can't put a foot right and never really have been able to, at least for the past sort of 20 years or so.
We're still waiting for him to move into Marsh Farm. So we wrote the story at The Sun, back in January, that Marsh Farm was being renovated. The Palace keeps saying that he's due to be in by Easter.
It's been wrecked. The poor place looked quite nice before. Now with this lump of this sort of Peaky Blinders caravan on the side of it, it's just dreadful. This was quite a nice sort of country home. It's just awful now. The way it's been. I don't know. I think that. When he eventually, if he ever moves in, it just seems crazy to me what's been going on.
Well, surely, it feels like he's dragging his heels. He might getting comfortable at Wood Farm.
He had to be sort of dragging and screaming out of Royal Lodge. I think it'd be the same with Wood Farm, and if he could stay at Wood Farm and put his security and staff up in the other place, I'm sure that's what he'd prefer.
We have seen a couple of photos of Andrew. We hadn't seen him since that, and incredible photo coming out of the police station, the unforgettable photo. We've seen a couple of pictures of him recently, and it was described, I think, in The Sun as wistfully looking at his horses after he'd been banned from riding, Rob.
I mean, has he been banned from riding? That does seem a bit ridiculous, but wistfully is a good word for The Sun. No, I don't know. I think that the man is, he had his opportunities. He should have gone and answered questions, and I don't think he's got any credibility ever. He'll never get any credibility again because he's just avoided the subject, and it's a very serious subject. And, he's just not answered questions. All he's done is said that, he had nothing to do with it, can't remember these people, don't have any recollection. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, and I think he'll be staying out away from the photographers when Charles and Camilla are in the USA.
Yeah, it has to. I mean, because they need to change the subject. They need to change the narrative on. But whilst you've got him here, whilst you've always got the Andrew's going to be this problem continually until it's addressed, and they can't really do anything or go anywhere without being shouted at from the monarchists, the anti-monarchy group. And it's a real problem for the monarchy going forward because this will be the legacy of this reign.
The legacy of Charles'
I
reign.
think you had the legacy of this reign so far has been really the fallout of William and Harry and the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor arrest. They're the two seismic things that have happened on the reign of Charles III. Everything else, actually, he's done great jobs in France and Germany and diplomatically, but it just pales into insignificance, actually.
Well, before we move on, I mean, he's sorted. If we're talking about the King's legacy, he's sorted Andrew, hasn't he? He's kicked him out of Royal Lodge and stripped him of his titles.
And maybe paid to millions of pounds towards a woman that Andrew didn't know, which we were told, did it happen or didn't it happen? Well, I think it's really time the royal family and the palace stop sort of hiding in the shadows and answers questions directly, because actually in the long run, everything comes out.
Yes, and some would say that he didn't move too quickly on any of these issues, and that's obviously partly because it's his brother. I think we'll find that under William, there is no messing around. He will be very fast to cut people loose, and I think that that's a much better thing. And I think that William's basically wanting to know that his legacy isn't going to be tarnished by this, and almost the king has had to take the fall for it.
Well, in a way, but if the king did part with millions of pounds of hush money, that's not a great situation. And the reality is that yes, he may have warned the late Queen, to take action, and she didn't do it. But on his watch, he did take action. Yes, but you've got to be very open and honest and transparent about things about money, because why would anybody give £12, let alone £12 million, to someone they don't know, they've never met? And where did that money come from? It still is something that's not been properly answered. Yeah, we know the palace brief behind the scenes, the king didn't do this. But the reality, you can't do this briefing behind the scenes. You've got to be transparent and open and honest. This is a very serious situation. And if they did part with that cash, and it gets proven that is the case, then the king has got a real problem.